4 minutes and 7 seconds, and you're going to be past, but you can't check the balance.
Mm.
And when you mentioned about being an entrepreneur, there's a special talent. It's there's not a lot of people can be a decent entrepreneur. And I'm not saying I'm a great entrepreneur, but I've started a lot of companies and I've taken several into 7 and 8 figures. But it takes you have to suffer. You got to enjoy pain.
Yeah.
You really do. And the pain can come in a lot of different ways, whether that's time, whether that's aggravation, whether that's frustration, learning this, finding that out, failing at this. And I don't think I've ever done anything, Jackie, that I've either failed at or I've succeeded at that I haven't taken something away from and start something else immediately. And I
Welcome to the Resilient Minds podcast, stories of grit, growth, and success, where we dive deep into the journey of successful leaders who've struggled and succeeded. Before the wins, before the titles, what was the mindset behind the leader? On this show, we focus on real stories behind the success, the struggles, the resilience, and the courage it takes to keep moving forward, even when times get tough. My goal is to provide you with stories of hope and transformation, showing that no matter the challenges, there is a way forward. On this show, we'll be meeting with highly successful leaders who've battled through obstacles, emerging stronger and wiser on the other side. This show is for anyone who wants to grow, evolve, and find the light at the end of the tunnel. Everyone's a leader, so together, we'll uncover what it truly means to evolve as leaders, and ultimately, as human beings. This is Resilient Minds. Hey, this is Dr. Campbell, and I'm your host. I'm here with Jay Setchell, and he is a retired Marine sergeant, and he's here to share us some wisdom and some growth-minded information about resilience. And there's nothing that is more impactful than your real-world experiences. So thank you so much, Jay, for coming on the show.
oh, I'm glad to be here with very, very happy.
Well, thank you. So your time is very valuable, especially with all of your experiences. You shared a little bit about your story, but I know there's so much that goes into it. What do you think is one of the hardest experiences that you've ever had to come back from?
My broken neck was the hardest. I did a year in the Naval Hospital from the Marine Corps, and when I died in November of '69, but the broken bones heal, and having lived was it just I just pushed through it. That was not a problem, but the broken neck is something you can't see. It's inside. And you have no way to heal it because a broken neck doesn't heal. I mean, the bones heal, but the spinal cord is damaged and it never comes back. That was by far the hardest. So I look at my ability to get over that kind of like I did getting out of boot camp in the Marine Corps. It took a lot. It took a lot. Every bit you got was earned. Nothing was given.
Right. Absolutely. And like you were saying before we started recording this show is actually it's probably going to be better coming from you, but adversity is what builds us, right? How did you phrase it?
How did I phrase adversity? Oh, just that I think that adversity, you become much stronger with the more adversity you encounter. I mean, I just adversity and hard times and rough times and all that. Because if you don't, it's kind of like the old saying, a person that has fallen down and gotten back up is stronger than one that has never fallen down and had to get back up. And I've fallen probably 1,000 times. So I know now when I fall, I have to call EMS and they have to come pick me up to put me back in my wheelchair. So it's really degrading to me, but yet I try. I mean, I bleed, I try, it doesn't matter. And that gets back with the old saying that, sweat dries, blood clots, broken bones heal. Suck it up, and that's what you got to do. You have to look at it because the soft people don't make it very far. They
Mhm.
just don't. You have to have that toughness and that hardness in adversity, setbacks, roadblocks. In my book that I've just completed, just came out. One of the people I thank and is that I acknowledge. I thank the people that stood in my way. I thank for my failures because it gave me more of a burning desire to succeed and to prove them wrong.
Yeah,
And that's I think it got a lot to do with it.
right. And on that point, I completely agree because I remember when I was maybe 12 and my dad said, "You can't hack it in the Marine Corps." And so I looked at him like, all right, watch me. That's exactly what I did. Right. But years later, it was the same thing in business. I was crying because I didn't know how to pay all the bills and I felt like my integrity was in question. And there was so much. I was about to file bankruptcy. I was a single mom losing the business. And my brother said, well, maybe it's not cut out for you. You know, those tears dried up so quick because it's like, okay, watch me. Now I got the oomph to be able to move forward.
Right,
But
right.
if you don't have those eye-opening moments, and sometimes it's somebody else giving it to you because they don't believe in you, or sometimes you just there's nobody around and you just have to pick up and carry on.
I've said for years, I don't think anything really great has been accomplished until you're either mad as hell or on fire with a cause.
Yeah.
And at that point, I know, And I had a cousin, Bob, he served from 60 to 64 in the Marine Corps. And he said, whatever you do, don't go in the Marine Corps. Never. I was in the Marine Corps. Don't go in, So, I'm going, okay, Bob, right. 3 years later, I go enlist, it's like, and that's what drives you, but there's certain things that catch your attention. And I'll mention what I did before when we were chatting, if you want, at this point about boot camp. And the two things that caught my attention. Now, going through boot camp in early '68, they were ramming us through for Vietnam. Boot camp was 14 weeks long. They cut it to 9 weeks just to get us in. We had to do everything, range. It didn't matter. Everything had to be done. We just worked more hours in the day, and we worked half of Sundays instead of having Sunday off, so to speak, which you never have Sunday off. But one morning we had our senior drill instructor pulled us outside, and we always carried our buckets. I don't know why. And when we went outside and we took a pail and we sat down in the pail, and he kind of had us in a semicircle, and he was chewing us out and reaming us and all this. But he said part of it was, he said, the reason we're so hard on you guys, and I can't say it on here and all that stuff, you know that, but is because we don't want you to die. And we've all been to Vietnam, and half this platoon is going to go to Vietnam. It's going to go to Vietnam. You'll be in Vietnam within a month after you graduate boot camp.
Mhm.
Maybe 5 weeks, but 4 to 5 weeks you're going to be in Vietnam, and half of you aren't coming back. And the other half of you are probably going to come back wounded or missing a leg or an arm or something. And a guy that I went through boot camp, that's on the back of my book at the bottom, Francisco Pacheco Alicia, he was in Vietnam 5 days, was middleman on a fire team on a sweep through a mine through a rice paddy, stepped on a mine, lost both his legs and an arm, half his arm, and the guy in front of him, behind him, and we were socially distanced as they call it today, but we had about a 15-20 foot spread. They did, and the guy in front of him and the guy behind him got killed, and the point man and the tail gunner both got shrapnel. But the point was 5 days in Vietnam, and he was gone. But a lot of people died on their first day. But he didn't die. He's been a pastor and a minister now for 45 years. And before that, I think he had a pretty tough time. But that story got me pretty good. And then the next day, we went to Balboa Naval Hospital down in San Diego, and we all had to give blood. They checked our blood first, and we all gave our blood. And at the end, we're all sitting there drinking orange juice and eating peanut butter crackers or something for get our blood sugar back up. And one of the doctors came out and said, "I want y'all to know that the blood you've given today is going to be flowing through the veins of your brother Marines in Vietnam within 48 hours." that gets your attention
Perspective.
more than not because you're still sitting there with your arm wrapped up and you're eating the crackers and you're thinking, wow. And the day before, they just told us half of us won't be coming back and half of us will be wounded. And that's pretty much about what happened.
Right.
It's a but that just gets and I think that it makes you train harder, it makes you work harder, it makes you more committed to following the orders because close order drill is about orders. It's
Right.
just like, I mean, when a platoon is going through and you sound like one person,
Hmm.
it's amazing compared to how you start out.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Well, in terms of how it is in life too, like if you're talking about business, a lot of business minded people, entrepreneurs, people who are freelance, they have to follow very strict rules and guidelines for time management, discipline, accountability, those
Mm.
types of things where they need that implemented into their life so they can build the grit. Because business is going to teach you, life is going to teach you, and you have to have that as a foundation for your
Oh,
internal
yeah.
strength so you can move forward with all the things that are happening in life.
Oh, most definitely. And I was very fortunate that I was raised by some very, very good parents on a working farm. I mean, responsibility was from 3, 4, 5 years old all the way up. I mean, if the livestock wasn't fed, you didn't eat. Going through high school, I worked nights. I got out of high school 1/4to 4 in the evening or afternoon. I started a job at a small agricultural factory that made grain dryers. And I started at 4 o'clock, worked till 12:30, got home, got into bed about 1, got up at 5:30 in the morning, helped my dad with his chores, and then I went back, I showered, I had a bite to eat, went back to school, did the whole thing over again because I had my own chores or cattle and hogs and such. And if I didn't help my dad in the morning with his chores, he would charge me to do my chores at nighttime. But that was responsibility because it took labor, it took time, and time is money. Money is time. And that's where, and I'm going to make a statement here that I find it hard. Most people, it's hard to understand. I think for most people, it's hard to understand the value of life. And my wife gets upset when I say this, but understand the value of life until you've been dead or near dead or with the threat of dying. And I mean truly dying. And and with that, I've added in the value of time and how it associates with the value of life. Because you can get on your computer right now or call the bank and ask what your deposits are in the bank. You can find out how much money you got in the bank. But when you're the day you're conceived, and I explain it like this, not when you're born, when you're conceived, you begin life.
Yeah.
And from that point on, God's given you 7,932 days, 22 hours, 4 minutes, and 7 seconds, and you're going to be past, but you can't check that balance.
Mm.
And when you mentioned about being an entrepreneur, there's a special talent. It's not there's not a lot of people can be a decent entrepreneur. And I'm not saying I'm a great entrepreneur, but I've started a lot of companies and I've taken several into 7 and 8 figures. But it takes you have to suffer. You got to enjoy pain.
Yeah.
You really do. And the pain can come in a lot of different ways, whether that's time, whether that's aggravation, whether that's frustration, learning this, finding that out, failing at this. And I don't think I've ever done anything, Jackie, that I've either failed at or I've succeeded at that I haven't taken something away from and start something else immediately. And I always had 3 companies at a time. I always believed that 3 companies, and it's kind of like being back in the military because we got the trident. We go by land, sea, and air, the Marine Corps. Okay. And so if all 3 are doing great, that's phenomenal. But you might have one that's doing really great, one that's doing kind of medium, one that needs a little bit extra help. And you have to be able to recognize that, but you also have to be a manager of money. understand finances, understand when to stop, when to quit, when to change directions. And when you fired on the range, it doesn't take much to miss the target. If you're at the barrel of your rifle, when you're shooting at 500 yards, you move it a thousandth of an inch, you just missed your target by a foot.
Mhm.
So it doesn't take much. And I uh, I get very convicted about it. I have a lot of conviction with it because I think that having seen death multiple times and having should have died a couple of other times. 4 years ago, when I had COVID Delta, they told my wife to go home and make funeral arrangements, and I ended up spending 5 months in 4 hospitals. And the doctor told me when he let me out of the first hospital, he said, you're the oldest one that's made it, but I wasn't obese and I didn't have diabetes. Um, but I'd had punctured lungs. I had drowned. My lungs weren't they're not in the best shape as it is. And, but he said, you always said like, I'm going to, you would mouth to me, am I going to make it? And I didn't want to tell you no. And I couldn't say yes. And so it was like, I don't know. And you always kept back. You used the bad word, that we can't say on here. That he asked my wife, why does he swear so much? She said he was a Marine.
Yeah.
And
No
no,
way.
I'm serious. It comes out. It's just like, and I see you smiling, so I know you know
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. It's like you had enough. That's it. And but he said, you would say, no, I'm going to effing beat it. I'm going to make it. I'm going to. And he told me at the end, he said, I believe your attitude is what saved your life. And I think your attitude can make such a difference. And remember, I've got a sweatshirt right over here. And it's got attitude is everything. And you've heard that, and it is. And some people, I think it used to be called attitude, and then they changed it to mindset.
Mm.
I think it kind of, it evolved or something. But whether it's attitude or mindset, boy, it's very, very, very important. And it's like, when you were younger, you might have heard, boy, they need to get an attitude check
Yeah.
or an attitude adjustment. That used to be you went out and got drunk, is what happened, or something, you know, and you need an attitude adjustment. But once you look at things in a different perspective,
Right.
and
Right.
that's it. But the resilience you get is, wow, I made it. I did it. I achieved it. I accomplished it. In my problem is that I've never looked. If my goal was if somebody's goal was 100% and my goal is going to be 140, I'm going to make it 240, and I know I can do it. That's a confidence level. That's a belief level. That's a faith level, not a hope. And there is a difference between hope and faith and belief. Because I hope I can hit the target. Ah, I know I can hit it. That's believing it. That's a faith that you've got it, no matter what. And I use target, but that target can be anything, whatever you're going to do. But I used to, like in sales and sales management, when I did that, and I did it corporately for about 10 years and did very, very well. But I only say that because I did. But the thing was, I would take people and I would have them, if our budget was or our goal was 110%, I said, what's your personal goal? Bob, okay. And I would have them put it on little sticky notes, the little tiny ones that come out. And I'd put it on their rear view mirror, on their bathroom mirror, on their briefcase. I'd stick it all over. So it was a reminder. But no matter what it was, I had my goal because I carried some weight as a district manager or whatever position I was in. And then I had a stretch goal, then I had a what if goal. And I could always hit my what if goal and go past it. So, and it's just a mindset.
Yeah.
You don't doubt yourself. And I understand what it's like when you're saying about starting out as an entrepreneur or what am I going to do? Am I going to do this? Am I going to? And I tried to always look ahead in being disabled, and I'm not disabled. I'm, and I use this word loosely, but I'm crippled is what I am. Disabled is between your ears.
Mm.
I'm differently abled,
Mm.
but I always look at what if, and I have to look so far down the road, and I've had to look so far down the road. If you're a point man on combat, you better be looking way ahead
Right.
and thinking way ahead and a what if and
Well,
being prepared.
well, when you're talking about like the story you were saying that when you guys were in the Naval Hospital, they were taking your blood and they told you within 24 hours this blood is going to be in other Marines.
Yeah, 48, but yeah,
Right then and there, everything that you were concerned about, your frustrations, your emotions, your concerns, your worries, all the helplessness, right? All that can just completely go away with that one statement. And so, even if you do struggle moving forward, all you have to do is shift the perspective and it will get easier.
it will. And if I could, I want to give a little uh, explanation of that mindset that I I picked up on. I was about 35, 36 years old, so that was a long time ago, like real long time ago. And but I was on the East Coast of the United States. I was around I don't know, someplace on the coast of Georgia, and the sand beaches went for miles. And they had these little, I was there for a conference, and they had these sand carts with the sails on them, and you can go wisping down the beach in a sand cart. And they had one that was a two-spotter. With my paralysis and disabilities, I couldn't do it real well. So I rented one of these things, and the guy went with me, and we're going to southbound on the beach with the Atlantic wind coming off, and then it's blowing like heck. We're probably running 50, 55 mile an hour. We were going pretty fast. And going northbound was another cart went the other way. And I'm thinking, wow, same cart, same wheels, same sand, same beach, same wind, same sail. How can we be going southbound and they're going northbound? And I thought about it, and he turned around, and I watched what he was doing and stuff. And then I thought, it's the set of the sail.
Mm.
It's the set of the sail. That's the set of your mind. Your mindset is like the sail. You just have to adjust it a little bit, and it controls the direction in which you go.
I really like that. I'm going to use that.
Make sense?
Setchell gave it to me.
You got it. And I mean, I put it in my book because it was such a one of those wow moments that because I've always wondered, how does a boat go eastbound across the Atlantic when the wind is blowing westbound? I never figured, I never thought about it, but I wasn't a sailor. My sister did, but I didn't, and she sailed around the world, so to speak, but it was like, yeah, no, use it. And it's good because it's very effective and it's very accurate.
Right.
That's the thing. And another a thing that I would like to mention too, I thought about last night, and there again, I mentioned it in my book, but I don't think about the stuff I put in it because when I did it, I dictated it because I didn't want to. A lot of stuff was very hard when I wrote my book, The Strength Within You, because I remembered back when I died. I remembered back at the pain. I remember back at the third-degree burns. I remembered, you know, the gal that was in my car that was the wife, just not married very long, with the other Marine that I was taking to base because he was undercover, worked for me. They found out where he lived. It was a bad situation. And we hit a semi. Well, she died after 18 months of being in a coma. And he didn't get busted up as bad as I did, but he had 60% burns, third-degree burns around on his body. And he passed away from a heart attack about 5 months ago. So it's been kind of hard for me because I died trying to save him, thinking he was going to die from the loss of blood, and I'm still alive, and now he's dead. It's like, and it's thing. But what I was going to say was, I was in the back of an airplane or flying someplace. Oh gosh, I don't. back, I was about 35, 36, somewhere 37 maybe. And in the back of they used to have magazines that you buy stuff out of and all that stuff in the back of the things. And and I came across this page in this magazine on the back of a flight to Europe. And, and it was like a shoot of a tree, a green tree or a bush, whatever it was, growing out of a solid granite cliff. And it's like, wow, this is like weird. It was very stark. And on the cover of my book, I have a bent tree in the wind. It's just real bent. And it's because I have been bent, but I've not broken.
Right.
Okay. And I was looking at this tree and I was trying to find it. I couldn't find it. And but at the bottom was a little word called Reverisco, Reviresco, I believe it is. And at the time, Google wasn't out, and they've come up with some different terms and stuff for it. But I thought, well, Reverisco. So I tore the page out and folded it up and stuck it in my sport coat and pocket. And when I got back, I was based out of the Chicago greater area at the time. And when I got back, I got a hold of a guy I knew that worked at the Chicago Public Library. Well, they had connections with it there, and they did some research on it. Well, it's a Latin derivative root word for "I shall flourish in adversity."
Hmm.
And you think about the adversity that plant or that tree took growing out of a granite cliff by itself up
Yeah.
there in the middle of nowhere. It was crazy. So I thought everything that I had been through, by then I'd been dead my third time. I'd started having multiple surgeries. And I mean, I got doctors that still don't believe I've had 73 surgeries, but I just had my 73rd one 5 months ago, another back surgery. And how much more adversity do I have to go through to keep an attitude or a mindset that by God, I'm going to make it? Don't tell me I'm not going to do it. Tell me I'm not going to do it. No, go ahead, because that's just going to drive me more. You know what I'm talking about, you
Absolutely.
know, and so that's where I believe a lot of people fail, is that they don't pick up that, get an attitude, but just make sure it's a good attitude.
Yeah.
Make sure it's the right attitude, the right mindset. Make sure your sales adjusted that little bit that guy did that took us the other direction.
Absolutely. Well, I wish we had more time. I would love to hear more, but we were gonna have you back on the show. Would you join me again?
Sure, I'd love to, because I know things kind of got off and moved around, but no, I'd love to. And there's a lot I think that entrepreneurs need to know. People just in general, from people that have died, and and I talked to a gentleman the other day, and I said, the greatest encyclopedia or the greatest amount of information you can ever gather is at the feet of your grandparents.
Mhm.
Listen to what they say, ask them. Now, maybe your grandfather doesn't say a lot of words, he just gets to the point, but maybe grandma will talk. What got them through the depression? What did that bother them? Did it affect them? Maybe it didn't. Maybe they weren't even really aware of it because of the way they lived to begin with. So, but yeah, there's a lot to unpack. And I hear most of the people that I listen to are younger people. No offense. I mean, they're in their 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s. And I'll be 76 tomorrow night, New Year's Eve. And but if I had only worked at one job or two jobs in my all my life, I never left my hometown, would be one thing. But I have, you know how hard it is, Jackie, for people when they say they've lost their job or they had to change directions or they've had to move and upset their family. I've done that right at 40 times or more.
Right. Yep.
And
Okay.
so I've learned a lot, and you think ahead about what's the electorate going to be? What do I have to do when I get here? What am I going to do? And but no, I would be honored. Thank you very much for asking.
Thank you. I'd be honored to have you
Oh,
back. All right. Thank you so much for your time today.
thanks, Jack. I appreciate it, Doc.
Thank you so much for joining. Your time and your focus are your most valuable currencies, so thank you for giving that to us today. Our guest contact information will be in the description below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. But please, if you know someone who's struggling, stop right now and send this video to them. The struggle behind growth and success is real, and they need the support to make it, because the strongest minds are the ones that healed. So don't forget, lead louder, feel deeper, and stay resilient. Until next time, this is your host, Dr. Campbell, on the Resilient Minds Podcast.